Hello everyone. NIO's market update. Potential bounce ahead. NIO down 2.64% today. Bullish signs on 30 minutes and 4 hours charts. Deutsche Bank positive, short interest drops, and wedge breakout anticipated. NIO's rebound scenario discussed. Stay tuned for more. What's going on with the overall market, and break down this falling wedge that's developing on NIO, and talk about whether or not it's probable for NIO to try to balance going into next week or not. I want to talk about some very important technicals for NIO and then break down what's happening with the overall market. But before I do anything like this, so NIO is down 2.64% for the day, once again coming down, and the question is, can NIO try to get a bounce from this level, or is NIO going to continue to sink? Well, one thing we could mention is that there's a bullish divergence on the 30 minutes time frame is trying to develop. It's also developing on the 4-hour time frame, I believe right about here. So with all these divergences and etc. like developing for the stock, it's actually not on the 4 hours, just on the 30 minutes. But with all these divergences, it makes me suspect that there could be something coming. Especially because we have this imbalance up here in like 13s. And I want to mention that as far as NIO goes from a technical standpoint, it is still looking a little bearish, right? It's continuing to downtrend right now, but a balance is essential for triggering change. Observe that MACD on the 4-hour chart, indicating NIO's search for a bottom. There is a possibility of that, but for me to get confirmation of NIO actually bouncing, it's essential to observe this break occurring at this point. It has this falling wedge that's been developing for over 8 days, been over a week. We are going to assume it's going to be in this wedge unless we get the breakout, and whether or not this happens is going to depend on a lot of different factors. One thing worth mentioning is that NIO continues to announce some bullish pieces of news, and NIO was due for a bit of a pullback after that very strong deliveries report that just came out. Now on August 10, NIO launched its 7th power swap station in Germany. Good news for them, highlighting the significant advantage of having over 500,000 third-party charging stations accessible across European countries, which is still good news for them. And then, to add on, I just want to mention that Deutsche Bank has come out, and they're giving NIO a buy rating. So this is the first time we got some more bullish potential news. Deutsche Bank is saying that NIO has strong fundamentals. They also mentioned that their deliveries are expected to be much stronger for the second half of the year. And they're kind of like reiterating a lot of the points that these other analysts were saying, such as Morgan, before we saw like Mizuho. I think it was Morgan that said this to Citigroup. They were expecting a second strong half of the year. They said this back in June. And so far it's been relatively strong. NIO's very strong deliveries. NIO is going to have some more numbers coming out for deliveries for August, so we're going to find out how those look very soon as well. But from a technical standpoint, it looks like this thing may get a bounce very, very soon. But we need to discuss if there's any confirmation for breakout. Now the short interest has been dropping a little bit over the last couple of days. NIO is experiencing reduced levels of heavy shorting compared to the previous situation. And when we consider the volume, it's not really dropping an extremely high volume. It's a little bit less than the average volume we've been getting. And considering the short volume in relation to the price, it's actually starting to drop. Short volume is dropping on NIO, which could be a bullish signal. I think it's going to be heavily dictated by the market and these external factors. But from a technical standpoint, the data it is suggesting things are improving for the stock. So with this falling wedge developing, one essential step is to review previous levels. Now we actually broke a little bit below this resistance, which is now like support around this 12.8 area just temporarily. And we had this breakout that formed this breakout just about there, maybe very close to this level, like around 12.4. So it dropping a little bit more and maintaining this trend for a little bit longer before this thing really starts to case. It drop a little bit more, there's a possibility of that. Or it could just break out from here. So we're going to be discussing, where does NIO break out? Does it actually break out of the wedge immediately, or does NIO end up doing something differently? So focus on keeping track of the overall trend. We're also going to be discussing other support levels. We have this trend line right here, which I could draw out. Let's evaluate the visual representation. I actually haven't done this before, but you could draw out a trend line from here to here like the previous levels. And then I know this is not like aligning that closely. This does suggest that there could be a little bit more downside if we do come down this low. So, like I said before, there's something suggesting that there could be a little bit more downside for the stock. Analyzing the trend line at this point, it does look like support is still down there, but I am expecting this thing to bounce very, very soon, maybe as soon as next week. I still think it could happen. We could potentially witness a scenario where NIO experiences a bit more downward movement like this, if anything, before it tries to continue going. So envision a scenario where NIO experiences another slight drop, possibly reaching around 12.4, aligning with the previous breakout point in this region. Following that, we could witness one more bounce before a final breakout, much like this pattern. This could lead to NIO's recovery, gradually making its way back up as we head into next week. That could be one possibility. Or what could happen is we don't get the drop. We might not get this drop. It just depends on this wedge, right? Where do we anticipate this breakout to occur? Where does this thing try to bounce? That's because there's a possibility that starting as soon as Monday, this thing might just start breaking out like this and then start making its way up to at least 13.5 plus into almost $14. This could happen as soon as Monday, but either way, I'm anticipating either it drops a little bit more than we get some kind of bounce soon, or it just straight up bounces from here. Those seem very probable to me. Now I'm going to talk more about SPY and how it relates to NIO in just a couple of minutes, because there's something big going on with SPY. But I want to talk about Tesla as well. When you analyze Tesla, it's been respecting this falling wedge for quite some time, but Tesla is forming a divergence and trying to hold around this level. So the question I have is, could this be the formation of like an inverse head and shoulders like pin, where it's going to get a push up back up to these high levels? Is Tesla going to get a retest of this upper trend line, which I think is very probable? Observing a potential scenario where there might be a bounce and a retest before a subsequent downturn. But how this ends up playing out, because so far Tesla is trying to hold up and there is some signs of strength for it. Now Tesla is going to depend heavily on the news, but for now, there's still some potential. And also for the QQQ, we have another pretty large looking falling wedge that's been developing. So all these different falling wedges, the market should eventually get a breakout within the next 2 weeks. But we need to exercise patience and observe, especially when considering the weekly perspective. Especially on the QQQ, it's still looking a little bit weak. We will observation the bounce comes or not. We're about to get a bearish cross on the PPO, so it could come a little lower before it bounces, or it just bounces from here. That's a little hard to predict. But what I do want to mention is that we are approaching this previous resistance, which is becoming support at this 366 level. So if this goes anywhere else. But I want to talk more about SPY tomorrow, because SPY has something very, very interesting developing, and SPY could have a big effect on NIO, believe it or not. I believe that it's going to be very important for tomorrow's video. That's why I want to focus a lot on SPY, because something big is developing on the chart. And until then, I just want the best for everyone. And just know that yes, technicals currently look bearish for NIO, but I'm going to be anticipating a bounce eventually because of how much it dropped in such a short period of time, and because it's forming a bullish falling wedge and it's getting very close to a 4-hour crossover on the PPO. So a bounce should be coming soon. I am anticipating it and will evaluate the situation as it unfolds. I'm having some doubts about its authenticity. There is technically a bullish divergence on the 4-hour time frame as NIO is very oversold, but on the 30 minutes time frame, it is confirmed there is a bullish divergence right now. So this ends up playing out. It really depends on if we get the bounce and the breakout from the wedge for now. But I do believe there's a good chance of a bounce coming eventually. Sometime next week, it may drop a little bit more further and then bounce, or just bounce from here. It's got to be one of those two, and that's what I'm leaning towards. So I will talk more about SPY tomorrow. I have something very interesting to announce about it, and then I'm going to talk about how that relates to NIO. So be on the lookout for that for tomorrow. Thank you for joining us today. If you enjoyed the video, don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe to our channel for more stock predictions and market insights. Remember to turn on the notification bell so you never miss an update. Happy investing and see you in the next video.